Welcome in and welcome back, everybody, to Trust the Board. Joey and Ryan with you, as always. And Ryland Bickley decided that he likes us enough. He's going to stick with us. He's going to come back for another episode. So thank you for joining us, Ryland, again. We have a very, very special episode planned for you guys. We're calling it the 2027 NFL Draft School Draft. And I promise this is going to make sense. I promise. Just walk with me now. We are going to be drafting universities, drafting schools that have some of the best prospects in the upcoming a year away, 2027 NFL draft class. And we're going to be doing this now. May 28th is the day when this is being recorded. And we're going to look back on this almost a full year later when the 2027 draft actually takes place. And we're going to have a scoring system that I'm going to have Ryan explain to us here in a second. But how are we feeling, guys? I know this is going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited for this.
Feeling great. Aaron Rodgers finally signed. Everything's positive in Steeler land. All the vibes are up.
Are they?
I mean, as much as they can be for us knowing everything's going to be about the same, even with all of the new shiny parts that have been added.
But we have the mid-2010s Packers coming back to save the Pittsburgh Steelers. We have Mike McCarthy, right?
Yeah. They won a few playoff games. They at least, got to some second rounds. So, maybe that's an improvement.
I don't ever hear Ryland's take on any of this, though. Like, I need to, Ryland, why, what's your actual genuine opinion on this Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy marriage?
Oh my gosh. The thing with Mike McCarthy is it was the floor pick for head coach, right? They're still going to be good to a certain extent. So I confidently think they're going to make the playoffs or be in contention for the playoffs again. I just don't know if we're going to get above that 10-7 line that everyone always freaks out about every year, anytime soon. And Aaron Rodgers, I wasn't that excited about him coming back, but we've known it was going to happen for so freaking long at this point that I don't really have an opinion anymore. It's just this is set in stone. We'll deal with it. Hopefully 2027 segue here, there will finally be that quarterback who everybody's been waiting for.
Great segue. Phenomenal segue. So, Ryan, you can explain some of the scoring that we're going to be having in the 2027 NFL draft, school draft.
All right. So, this is my sort of tinkering has come up with this. So, if this scoring system ends up being terrible, ghost in the comments, yell at me, direct the blame here. But this is basically how it's going to go. We've randomized the draft order, which we'll be getting to shortly, but just a little bit on that before we get to the scoring. We're going to go traditional draft at first, where we're going to go through the first two rounds in traditional draft order, but we're going to flip and make a turn from the second into the third and then go the opposite direction. And then we're going to do so again at the start of the fifth. As far as the scoring, here's the best way I can put it. If you pick the school that is the school of the first overall pick, you'll get 10 points. If you pick players that fall in between picks 2 and 5, so a top 5 pick, you get 7 points for each one of those picks you land. We also wanted to reward first half of the round. So if you get a player anywhere between picks 6 and 15, that'll be worth 5 points. If you get a first rounder that's in the second half of the round, you'll get 3 points. Any player that's drafted on day 2, that's rounds 2 and 3, will be worth 2 points per player for your schools. And anybody that's drafted on day 3, so that's rounds 4, 5, 6, 7, any player that lands in that range will award you 1 point. And then obviously once the draft happens in a little less than a year's time now, we will retally all this up and see who did the best.
Wow. All right. I'm excited. So now that we have the scoring kind of figured out, here's what we're going to do. We're just going to go right into it. And I want to say this before we got started. We randomized the order before we got started here. And Ryan ended up with the first pick. Guess who put everybody's name in a randomizer? Guess who?
Hey, to the bowls go the spoils. You could have randomized it, but you were actively saying you were too lazy to, as I did the list.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I was
So,
saying.
I think there's a lesson to be learned here.
I think so too. But I guess we'll kick things off. Go ahead, make your first pick. I think
Okay.
we kind of know
This to me,
where he's going.
yeah, this to me was the easiest one, not only because of the exact player that I think we all assume is going to be the 101 should he declare, but also because there's like 2 to 3 other players that could very easily be first round picks. I'm going to take the Texas Longhorns with my first overall pick. Obviously, the player I'm alluding to as that potential number 1 overall pick is Arch Manning. I know that people tuned out on him early in September last year, but as Joey and I have discussed on other pods, he got better as the season went on. The expectations were always unrealistic. And the fact that he opened up against what was probably the best defense in college football last year, that was even better than the team that had won the national championship just the year prior, uh, I think painted people's perspectives in a way that really wasn't fair to Arch. But it's not just Arch. Like, we've also got wide receiver Cam Coleman. He's the guy who, like, if there was a world where Jeremiah Smith didn't exist, he might be the number 1 receiver. The fact that he's going to probably be the number 2 receiver says a lot about this class. But there's also, on top of that, we've got edge Colin Simons. He could be a top 5 pick if he puts together a really strong season. We've got a strong offensive tackle prospect in Trevor Gooseby. And then we also got Ryan Wingo, another receiver who kind of disappointed last year, but had a lot of hype and comes with a strong pedigree. So maybe he plays his way back into being a high pick. And then linebacker Rasheem Biles and safety Jelani McDonald are also guys that I kind of had on my short list of, like, these are guys who could maybe be going in the first 2 days if everything goes well for them this season. So all in all, I just feel like Texas was kind of the runaway favorite for this slot. I think there's a couple other schools that, if things break right, could maybe be in the running once the scoring actually happens. But right now, I think this was the chalk pick.
Yeah, I think that was a chalk pick. I think that was the good pick because you have like 2 of maybe the top 5 prospects at this point in Arch Manning and Cam Coleman.
Mhm.
And then Colin Simons, you mentioned, if he puts together a really good season, he could be top 10. So you have the potential to have 3, maybe 4 top 10 picks and all really good players at the top of their positions. And then you have guys like Raheem Biles, who I think I talked about him last time on this podcast, the Pitt transfer. I'm a big fan of his game, so I think that was a good pick. Good pick.
Yeah,
For sure.
Texas was number 1 on my board as well. I assume it was on yours, Joey.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just a bunch of guys who are draftable, and they're all at like premium draft spots that always go high. It's not like their best player is a safety,
Yeah, and even if Arch doesn't declare, like, you're still looking at probably one of the top classes of the schools.
Yeah. Hopefully Coleman or Gooseby or Simons are slipping in there. Or Simmons are slipping in there. So, yeah, I don't think we need to banter much more about Texas. We'll see if they actually play as well as the expectations for them this year. That's kind of been the bugaboo for Texas for the last 20 years, but we'll see.
There's no reason they shouldn't be the best team in college football this year. There's literally zero reason why they shouldn't be. But I'm nervous to see what Ryland does here. This, the 1 pick was chalk. 2 and 3. I don't know. I'm interested to see what he does here.
I think there's 2 schools, and I think either one that you guys will land with, if you guys go how I think this is going to go, will be good.
Yeah. So, it is kind of between 2 schools here for me. I'm gonna go against my better judgment here, and I think I'm gonna go with the University of Oregon with the 2nd overall pick.
Dang. I was sitting here really hoping that maybe by some odds you guys were going to let that one sneak through, but yeah, I think that's good. Tell us why.
I mean, yeah, when you're looking at the board here, right, you got Dante Moore coming back, which, again, I do think is going to be good for his draft stock. Again, there is a solid chance, I still think, that Arch Manning doesn't declare for this draft, and that puts Dante Moore, I think, in a very good conversation there to be that top quarterback, or kind of in that top 5 range. And then again, you got a lot of other blue chip prospects like Mateo Uiagalelei, Jamari Johnson, Amari Washington, who I've been high on for a while. It's just, again, Oregon, they always recruit really well. So even if the team doesn't live up to expectations, there's going to be NFL prospects, a lot of guys on these early top big boards. I feel pretty confident there's going to be a solid group of first rounders here, and then some other day 2, 3 guys.
For
Good
sure.
pick,
I mean, super
but this
solid.
sucks. This sucks.
Oh, really? I'm surprised because Joey, I thought you were going to get the school you really wanted, but we'll put a pin in that.
Good pick. Great pick.
Thank you.
But yeah, I wish Dante Moore would have declared for the draft last year. I think that was one of the first episodes we ever recorded was the big Dante Moore debate. But Jamari Johnson's also a lot of fun too. Coy Parrish, they just have, again, much like Texas, you have guys that are going to get drafted top 10, a couple of first rounders at the very least, and then you just have guys all over. Oregon's such a talented team all around.
For sure. I mean, we haven't even mentioned like Bear Alexander, Iapani Lalalu, Teodo Tuloti. Like they've got all kinds of stuff, and there'll probably be a cornerback that comes out of nowhere. That's usually their MO2. There's usually a safety or corner that no one was talking about at the start of the year that becomes a darling during draft season. So yeah, solid pick. There in a fantasy world for me, there was a situation where maybe someone went with another school, and then the third school was. But I mean, realistically, this is the smart pick. So, good job. Now Joey's somehow going to pretend like he's going to be mad about getting his favorite player in the draft.
I think that for the sake of this game, Oregon was probably the better pick, but I'm not going to be mad at all. I'm going to run to the table. I'm going to take Ohio State, and I'm going to get the best player in this entire draft in Jeremiah Smith. Anytime anybody brings up Jeremiah Smith, I'm like, hey, he quote tweeted me. Did you know he quote tweeted me that one time? Love Jeremiah Smith. First of all, one of the better wide receiver prospects we've ever seen. We've ever seen. This guy comes in as a freshman, and he is the best receiver in the nation. If he was able to declare after his freshman season, he would have been the first receiver off the board. He was the best receiver in the nation last year. Mekhi Lemon put up a little bit, better stat line. They gave him the Biletnikoff. That's neither here nor there. Jeremiah Smith this year is going to reclaim that title, and he's just the closest thing to a complete receiver we've ever seen. I don't know if you guys saw Todd McShay. I saw this on Reels. They were asking him like, who is better than Jeremiah Smith as a prospect? And they gave him some really crazy names. Like he said, Jeremiah Smith is a better prospect than AJ Green, Julio Jones. The only one that he had any pause about was Calvin Johnson. Mm-hmm. That's the air Jeremiah Smith is in right there. That's what he's in right there. And I know the whole argument is going to be, well, why shouldn't Jeremiah Smith go number one? Wide receivers never go number one. He's the best football player in this class. And I'm going to get Julian Sand too. I'm not personally not a Julian Sand fan, to be perfectly honest with you. A little bit undersized. I can't blame anyone. A lot of people like his accuracy. If you value accuracy a lot, Julian Sand's your guy. I think that's kind of his strong suit at this point. I'm not a huge fan of him. But for the sake of this game, I guess he has that chance to be the second or third quarterback off the board. Let's say ultimate doomsday scenario, Arch Manning doesn't declare. That would be really good for Ryland and I for this game, because that would mean Ryan wouldn't be getting those points for the number one overall pick. So I'm not going to be too upset about getting Ohio State and the best player in the draft at the third pick here.
Yeah, I feel like, the Buckeyes, like at least on like the top 100 board right now, which obviously is not going to look anything like it does in a year, but like there aren't as many as like Oregon or Texas. But like if you could pick like one school till the end of time to like consistently develop NFL players, it has to be Ohio State. And so like there will be guys who pop up later in this process who are going to be studs in the NFL. And I think this is like probably the safest pick in the draft.
Yeah, there's going to be guys.
You go ahead.
There's going to be guys they've been sitting on for like 2-3 years, or that have been toiling away at some small school that came in for a transfer that isn't everybody's like number one right now. But once the season gets going, because I mean, you think about last year, nobody was talking about Arvell Reese. Very few people were talking about Sonny Styles as a top 10 pick. And, that's what happened. So
exactly.
Austin Searvald, the offensive tackle, Kenetta Jackson, those are some returning players that I think are also going to be in the running for first 2 days getting picked. But yeah, never a bad bet to go with the Buckeyes.
I was considering a school over them just because right now I feel like there is a school out there that I think Ryan is going to take here, if I had to imagine, that has a lot of guys that are on the top 100 big board right now, and they're going to be they're returning a lot of guys. It feels like they're a pretty safe pick right now. So I'm interested to see where Ryan goes, but I'm not going to be mad about Ohio State. I was a little bit upset. I did think Oregon was going to fall to me, but it's fine. It's fine.
I honestly think for this fourth pick, if we're gonna use that as a segue, there's like 3 schools I'm really kind of wrestling between here, and one of them I think has like that I think I'm gonna end up passing on is the one that has actually the best player out of these 3 schools, who I think could easily be a top 10, maybe top 5 player. Uh, I'm not gonna say these schools out loud because what if they fall? But probably not likely since we're gonna do this third round reversal. But I'm gonna go between 2 schools, and they
The
both
suspense.
they both just really dominated the transfer portal. So I just think that
I think I know where he's going.
I'm going to stick with the one that I think has a few more premium position players in their pool of players, whereas like the other one is going to need a lot of things to go right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draft Miami here at 4.
That was gonna be my next pick.
I thought for sure that they were going to fall to me. So it sounds like there was no chance of that happening.
I'm curious to see when the school you thought I was going to get picked gets picked. Why don't you bring it back up? But I'm going to go with Miami. They're another school right now where I just kind of think they're really good right now at dominating the transfer portal. Players that are going to get drafted go there because they know they're going to get showcased. They may not still be the U of years past, but they did finally reach the national title game after many, many years of is the U back. They finally kind of reached that destination. And we're going to start with Darren Mensah. Probably not going to be in the top 10 unless he has like a phenomenal season, but he could potentially work his way into being a first round quarterback if he has a strong year. We saw that work for Cam Ward. It worked less well for Carson Beck. I think he's probably in between those 2 guys as prospects. I like Cam Ward. I feel like he was kind of the beneficiary of a down class for quarterbacks. I don't know that he would have been the number 1 in a lot of classes, but he's still a fun player. Mensah's kind of like similar in that he doesn't have a huge arm. He's kind of like Beck in that respect. So he doesn't have a huge arm, and his downfield stuff is sort of the biggest question mark with him. But I don't know. I think he's a fun player. Damon Wilson Jr. is another big transfer. He's an edge player. Edge players always tend to get elevated and pushed up the board. Ahmad Moten Sr., he's a great defensive tackle that's probably going to go really high. OJ Frederico Jr. is a cornerback. Justin Scott. I'm kind of starting the Cooper Barkate hive. I'm going to start that now. Really enjoyed watching when I was watching Darren Mensah. It seemed like he was who he was always throwing to at Duke, and he comes with Mensah to Miami. Might end up regretting this, but I think there's going to be a good shot of getting a couple of high draft picks in that one. What do you guys think of this pick?
I like it. It's not the direction I thought you were going to go, honestly, but I think it makes a lot of sense. I'm very interested to see what Ryland goes with here because we are reversing order after this round, so I get 2 back-to-back picks. And I don't know. It'll be easy if Ryland makes it a little bit easier on me. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, no, we will see here. I've had some time to stew on mine with what is this? The number, I honestly forget. Yeah, the number 5 pick in the 2027
We're right,
draft.
mathematicians, guys.
Yeah, we are taking South Carolina.
Ooh. I did not think you were going there at all.
This is earlier than I thought, but I get why.
So, I don't think there's as much depth here as some of the other schools that we're talking about. But when you look at the 3 names that I wrote down, you have Dylan Stewart, you have Lenore Sellers, and you have Nick Harbor. We're talking really traitsy guys. And if we know anything about the NFL draft, is that teams absolutely love traits, especially when you're looking at edge rusher, quarterback, and wide receiver. Dylan Stewart could be a top 5 guy easy. Sellers, his stock's a little, who really knows what's going to happen there. But I mean, we saw Anthony Richardson go stupid high not too long ago. And so I think there's a good chance all 3 of these guys could be first rounders. And so, yeah, kind of betting on upside here, but so do NFL teams. And so, yeah, that's going to be my pick.
All right. Not where I thought you were going at all. But I think, like Ryan said, I see the vision. And in a game like this where we're a full year out, I think the play might be with some schools like South Carolina who have the guys that might have a couple first round picks. That can be the difference in winning. So I
For sure.
completely understand.
And I think NFL teams are still going to be high on Lenora Sellers. I think
Yeah.
that, I mean, I was listening to a podcast with Nate Tice recently, and I feel like, got one of the better reads on quarterbacks in the draft sphere. And he was talking about how he's just got traits. I mean, he's got traits that you can't coach into somebody. And I think there's going to be a lot of people saying, South Carolina really did not put a lot uh, on him that could support him. He had to do kind of a lot of Superman stuff. And last year felt like he was a guy who was trying to prove that he wasn't trying to Superman every play, and that actually maybe took a little some of his spark of what made him special out. So I'm hoping he gets a little bit back into that. Nick Harbor, I'm kind of like, I'm not a huge Nick Harbor guy, but Dylan Stewart for sure has some traits. And a name I want to mention, just because I think he's becoming a sleeper, and he also is pretty traitsy for his position, is offensive tackle Jacarius Peak. He's pretty lengthy I mean, obviously we don't have official measurements, and this might look stupid from a year when we find out that he has like 32-inch arms. But looking at him just on tape, and from what I understand, he's supposed to have pretty long arms. So another toolsy guy right there, that if he plays himself into being a first-round pick, Ryland might not have the deepest class with this school, but might score a bunch of points with just a couple of players.
Yeah, and maybe I'll spoil some of my strategy here, but like when I'm looking at our scoring system, right? Like a top 5 pick is worth 7 points. A day 2 pick is only worth 2 points. So if Dylan Stewart goes in the top 5, even if like South Carolina doesn't have a ton of draft picks, like that's worth over 3 day 2 picks right there. So I think betting on upside might be the route to go here, unless I'm just horribly wrong with how I think about these South
I,
Carolina players.
I think that's a good read. It might be something that we come back next year and go, that was wildly lopsided and might need to tweak the point system. Now that you say it like that, but
It's the first year.
it made sense to me in the time of making it up. So we'll see.
You can also say, like, I think the scoring's pretty fair, because I think that's a really good point. You can be like, oh, well, I'm just going to take the schools that have the upside for the top 5 picks or the round 1 picks. But then you can also take like all these big schools that always have a ton of draft picks, and it may end up evening out at the end. So I don't know. The scoring's pretty fair. I'll give you a pat on the back for the scoring system, Ryan. I think
there's
it's
definitely going to be some of these guys where we're like, yeah, that's definitely going to be a top pick guy who falls. Like, I mean, this time last year, Peter Woods was potentially in the running for 101 if it was a bad quarterback year. So like, stuff changes in a year's time. But Joey, not only are you probably going to get who you thought I was going to go for, but now you probably also get to get who you thought Ryland was going to go for. So I'm curious to see who those two schools are.
Yeah, I really thought Miami was going to be there for me, and I wouldn't have been mad at Miami. But if I'm being honest, I had a couple of schools over Miami, and I South Carolina, they weren't on my radar in this round, but I'm very glad that I'm getting both these schools here.
Yeah,
So
let's see
I guess
if
it's
the two schools that I was mulling over with Miami. We'll see.
I guess it's what order do I want to take these guys in? I'll pick the one I thought for sure that Ryan was going to go with Notre Dame. That's who I'm going to take here. I think I'm getting the upside of a top 5 pick in Leonard Moore, who appears to be a really, really good corner prospect, better than anyone we saw in this year's class. I'm getting the upside of CJ Carr, who is the current odds-on favorite to win the Heisman Trophy, and someone who really came on the back half of last year. And I know Ryan's rolling his eyes, and I don't think that CJ Carr's going to go out and win the Heisman either.
But that's a weird line if that's accurate.
It is. It's very weird. It doesn't make any sense, but he looked really good back half of last year. I'm going to bet that he's going to take a step forward. Maybe, he declares for the draft. And I'm getting a lot of guys that I don't know where they're going to go. Maybe they're going to go day 2, day 3, but I like some of the names here. Tay Johnson, the safety, is someone who's a lot of fun. I'm getting one of the better guards in the entire draft in Anthony Knapp too, which I think is sneaky, because Notre Dame linemen, they have a good reputation. They have the pedigree, and it's become cool in recent years to take guards in the first round, especially for those competing teams, fill out the offensive line. So I like that I'm getting a little bit of upside in him too. He's someone that I think is definitely going to go in the first couple of rounds. And if he sneaks in the first round, that's just more points for me. So Notre Dame.
Solid pick. That was one of the 3 schools I was mulling over, and I'm willing to bet you're probably going to take the third school that I was thinking about. You might surprise me here, but I think I got a good read on you.
I don't know if I think this is a school. This is the school, I think.
It certainly is an institution.
It is an institution. That is for certain, and probably because of their new head coach, I'm going to take the LSU Tigers.
Not who
dominated in the transfer portal. Who I'm interested now. I want to see who you were thinking.
Well, I don't want to say because Ryland's in between, but if they make it, I'll be happy.
Okay, I really don't know who you were thinking, but I'm interested to see. I think with LSU, I'm getting one of the best tackle prospects in the draft in Jordan Seaton. As of right now, I'm getting a really fun tight end prospect in Trey'Dez Green. I'm getting Jordan Ross and Princewell Umanalin on the edge. I'm getting a couple of good edge defenders. I'm also getting the upside of Sam Levitt. We don't know. Sam Levitt's going to get picked, and he's going to be worth a point. So there we go. There's at least a guaranteed point with Sam Levitt.
If Jackson Dart got drafted in the first round under Lane Kiffin, there's certainly a shot for it.
Exactly. Again, I'm doing the anti-Ryland route, I feel like, where he's doing maybe the schools that just have like the upside of guys that go really, really high. I'm picking where I'm going to have a whole list of guys going.
Well, I'll say this to circle back to upside. I've been following along with the mock draft database 27 board, kind of alongside this. And what's interesting is our top 10 prospects on that board are all gone right now in our first 8 schools. So we've cleared out that top 10 players already, which is kind of interesting. Obviously, this is going to change in like a huge way in the next year, but it is kind of funny just to see like, oh man, like all those guys are gone.
I'm very happy with my first 3 picks. Look at that. I got Ohio State, Notre Dame, and LSU. Wow.
Yeah, I want to just fast forward to next April so we can see how this shakes out already.
I agree. Let's do it.
Yeah, all right. And then am I on this clock next?
Yeah, you are on the clock.
Okay. So you scared me, Joey, because when you said with their new head coach, I was 100% positive you were about to say a certain Kurt Signetti. So I will happily coach Indiana off the board here. And this is kind of opposite my strategy from before, where I don't think Indiana, to my knowledge, has any like surefire blue chip guys right now in this process.
Whoa.
But there's a long list of like very good players, possible first rounders here, and I am a full-on believer in Kurt Signetti after what he's done at Indiana in 2 years. I don't think they might not win the national championship this year, but I think they're going to be a contender as long as he's there and getting funded and all that. We got Carter Smith, Charlie Becker. I kind of like Josh Hoover. I'm not like super high on him, but I've always thought he had something there. Jamari Sharp, lots of good players. I think it's a solid pick.
Hold on.
Ryan's freaking out about
I'm still upset because not only did you suggest this guy wasn't a blue chipper, you didn't even say his damn name, man. Nick Marsh slander will not be tolerated.
Oh, you're a big Nick Marsh guy. Okay.
Nick Marsh is a dude. He's probably if Jeremiah Smith didn't exist and Cam Coleman didn't exist, there's years where Nick Marsh is the wide receiver 1 if the rest of the class is around him. Like, I don't know. I'm a big Nick Marsh guy, and Kurt Signetti, he's gonna show you guys this year when Josh Hoover is just hitting him on RPO after RPO.
Yeah, I will. I was telling Ryan this before we started the draft that like I'm not a huge summer scouting guy just because so much changes. So like I read the articles from the people who I respect their takes, but I don't do a lot myself just because it's, I don't know, maybe I'm like slanderous for saying this as an NFL writer, but it just doesn't feel like the best use of my time. So, but I kind of like went into this knowing that you guys do more of your research, and I like purposefully did not, just because I think it'll be funny again when we look back on a year like me just like pulling random schools out of the blue, like, hey, that sounds cool, like how that strategy compares to you guys who like actually can like probably name like 10 players off of every single school that we're going on. So like I will be the first one to admit like I don't know everybody, but I think hopefully that adds some flavor to this draft.
I think Indiana was a good one. I I had LSU just above Indiana. They were next on my board. I had them. I had LSU above them, though, obviously. But I think with Becker and Marsh, you're getting the upside of potentially a couple of first-round receivers. And I didn't know Ryan was a big Nick Marsh guy. This is the first time I've heard him talk about him, honestly.
Well, we've been talking about the 26 class. We haven't had time to really jump into 27 yet. This is kind of our big foray into the 27 class, other than the quarterbacks that we discussed earlier. And man, I almost thought I got him because I was waffling when I made the Miami pick. It was Miami, it was Notre Dame, and it was Indiana. Those were the three schools I was trying to pick between. And to get it almost all the way back to me and then sniped. I'm in a bit of a tailspin here because I'm looking at who I have still on as teams available, and I'm gonna be honest, none of them I feel super confident about. So it's gonna be interesting.
I think we're throwing darts at this point.
We've reached that part of the draft. This is the 9th pick overall, and we're starting to slim out. So it's kind of gonna come down to like, which traditional powerhouse do you think is going to have some guys picked still? And man, I'm looking at this and
oh no,
this is tough. This is truly tough because a couple of these schools that are traditionally like big schools are slightly underwhelming. So I'm going to this might be a mistake, but I'm just going to default to a traditional powerhouse, and we're going to hope that one of their players has a big bounce back year. And I'm going to just take Alabama here.
I think that's a good one. I think that was the best team left. Getting Ryan Williams that late is good. I think
getting Ryan Williams, if he can bounce back, I hope is the case. There's Xavier Brown has a chance to work his way into. I don't think anyone in the barring injury, I don't think anybody's going to catch up to Leonard Moore unless Leonard Moore just has a terrible season. But I think everything at corner behind him is wide open. And so there's a chance that he walks in there. I don't know a lot about their edge, Pierre, but he's another name I have written down here. And it always seems like there's like some offensive linemen, regardless of how well they are performed. There's some linemen on both sides of the ball, honestly, defensive line and offensive line, that always seem to get drafted at some point for the Bama. So whether they end up just being some disappointing one-pointers for me, or if some of them kind of elevate, I think that's the gamble I'm taking. But yeah, that's pick 9. I don't know if we kind of reached the part where it's like, I don't know that we're going to be overly chatting about any of these schools, but I am curious to see how this shakes out moving forward.
Yeah, pickings are getting slim here. So it is back to me, correct?
I believe so.
Or is it?
Because you have 10, and then I'll get 12 and 13, and then we'll go back to the original. Yeah.
So I get Mr. Irrelevant at the end. Okay.
Correct.
At round 5. All right. So 11th overall, 4th round, first pick of the 4th round. I'm between a couple of teams. I'm with Ryan in the fact that I'm just like, which powerhouse am I going to default to and hope that they have a guy maybe take a step forward, or I'm going to take the Georgia Bulldogs right after Alabama. I think it's fine because I'm getting KJ Bolden, who figures to be one of the better safeties in the class. I'm getting Ellis Robinson, who, again, top corner. I don't know that he's not as good as Leonard Moore, but nobody is. So, and I'm also getting Nate Frazier, who the running back class is really interesting because of Ahmad Hardy, and we don't know his status moving forward. So Nate Frazier, he could all of a sudden, if he puts together a good season, he could be one of the better guys in that running back class overall. And Elijah Griffin, I don't think he can declare until 2028, but he's a really good defensive lineman that the Bulldogs have. So, I'm defaulting to the best powerhouse, much like Ryan did. I think he got the better of the two as far as this class, the better upside shot in Ryan Williams, but I'm comfortable with Georgia, I guess.
That's a good pick. I was really hoping that one of Alabama or Georgia would last for me here. because I was kind of going to take the same route that you guys did. And yeah, now I have literally no idea who I'm going to pick here. So uh, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, because there's a lot of traditional powerhouses where it's like, by this time, by next spring, maybe we're right before the draft, maybe we have more names for them. But there's a lot of those schools where you're kind of looking and you're like, man, they're kind of in their reset phases.
Yeah.
Like they're kind of retooling back up. And so there's a lot of unknowns about what's going into their class this year.
exactly. Yeah. I'm torn between like a bit of a list here. And again, as I said, I didn't do a ton of research into this draft class, so I'm scrolling through the top 100 big board right now, and I'm like, I couldn't tell you a lot about any of these names.
Silly.
Yeah, it's between essentially just another like powerhouse that I know is always producing players. I think I will go again, just straight off the dome. I couldn't tell you very much about any of these guys. We're gonna go with Penn State here,
Oh, yeah.
which I will regret.
I
But
don't think so.
to me, Penn State is one of those schools where I feel like they always disappoint in the regular season, but they always have prospects. I feel like every single draft, and maybe that's just because when I was doing Steelers mock drafts this year, just always Penn State players. I was like, oh yeah, this guy makes a lot of sense. But
Interesting.
yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's always a well of guys coming out of there, and yeah, that's kind of not quite like Georgia or Alabama, but another school that's like reliably is producing NFL talent.
Maybe controversial. I didn't even have them on my board.
That's fair.
I think it's like with them getting rid of James Franklin, because like as bad as you want to badmouth James Franklin, if there was one thing that he was capable of, it was recruiting, even if he didn't always get the best end results out of that recruiting. And so I know they had a lot of players like leave or decommit because of his exodus. So I'm just kind of like, I don't even want to touch Penn State, but
That's
that could
fair.
end up, but also like it's college football and like they are one of those schools. So it's like there's a solid chance that maybe this is like the sleeper best pick of the whole draft.
It very well could be. I don't know. Matt Campbell's a really good football coach, and he always had a couple of really good prospects at Iowa State. It felt like the last couple of years, he had Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel come out, and then he had Dominique Orange, who was a big riser. I mean, I like Rocco Becht. I think he's a really solid player. I don't know how much of NFL caliber he is, but that could prove to be a good value pick here. I'll tell you what. At this
Was Will
point,
McDonald Matt Campbell, or is that after?
yes, that was Campbell too.
Yeah.
That was another name that was eluding me.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right, that brings us back then to you, Joey. Does it not?
Wait. Oh no, it's your pick.
Oh shoot, is it?
Yeah.
Who'd you pick?
Who did I pick? I picked Georgia.
You picked Georgia. That's right. It went Georgia. Okay, so I get back to back here. So these are my last two.
Yes, these are your last two.
Okay. All right. How do we want to do this?
I have one that I really want.
I'm going to take one that I don't necessarily believe in their top potential guy, but it just feels like if we're taking those upside swings, like Ryan was mentioning, I just feel like I got to take Ole Miss here.
That's who I wanted. I didn't think there was any shot they would get to me, but that would have been awesome.
I personally think Chambliss is too small to be an NFL guy, but if he lights it up this year, anything's possible. So, and then you got Q1 Lacey, who's like in the running with Armand Hardy to be the first running back taken. Again, I don't know if that necessarily means I'm going to get first round points for it. But then there's always like some D linemen. They've got Suntarine Perkins at linebacker. They've got Will Eccles at defensive line. So we're gonna hope that they pay out. And then if this is my last pick, and we can kind of discuss further, I'm kind of how do we want to do this? There's like a bunch of schools where I'm like not loving what they got, but I think they're out for me. I think it's between two schools. I think I'm going to go the one where I know they for sure have a guy that's going to be a first rounder, even though this might come back to bite me because I think the players on the other team's list are more premium positions. But I'm going to go and take the Sooners here. take David Stone. Hopefully see if Eli Bowen is one of those guys that's able to get in the running for first round corner. And I think that's So I don't know. Thoughts? Did I bungle these last 2 picks?
As soon
You go ahead.
Oh yeah, no. As soon as I said Penn State, immediately my brain was like, "You should have said Ole Miss, stupid." So yeah, that was a very good pick right there. And
Nice.
yeah, the Sooners still had a pretty solid crop of players. So I think that's. I mean, again, it's all a crapshoot at this point, but that's I think as good as you could have done there, back to back.
Okay, yeah. So shoot. All right. That takes us to Ryland then.
Yeah. So looking here at my last pick, I don't know. I feel like there's not a ton of rhyme or reason to strategy at this point. It's all a total crapshoot. I'm looking at I think 2 or 3 schools here. One was kind of like my sleeper funny pick that I was thinking about doing, but honestly, I don't think after taking Penn State, I think
No,
I'll
you're
play it
too
a bit
competitive.
safer here. And yeah, I will take Clemson here. I think looking
Okay.
at that top 100 board, which again is just kind of I'm leaning on it this whole process late. We got a couple of guys who are in that top 100 more than I think any other school left. So yeah, we'll play it safe and round it out with another, not quite a powerhouse on the level of like a Alabama or a Georgia, but still a pretty reliable quality school with quality players.
Yeah, I think that's a solid pick. There was like one other one that I was kind of debating as well, but that was definitely one of the ones I was thinking there at the end. Because I mean, you've got TJ Moore at wide receiver, and then you've got a couple of guys. You got Will Helt at edge. You've got Ashton Hampton at corner, and you got Sammy Brown at linebacker. So Clemson has been, I think, on a downward trajectory ever since the post Trevor Lawrence years, but they still seem to always get guys drafted. And I mean, Blake Miller was a guy that I don't think was like super heralded and still ended up being a first rounder this year. And you had TJ Parker. Did TJ Parker end up going in the first, or was he like one of the early day 2 guys? I forget.
Oh, I don't remember. Let me look
But
that up.
he was
I
an edge.
think
And then they had Peter Woods. I
Second
don't
round.
remember.
He went to
I
the
was gonna
Bills.
say, second to the Bills, something like that.
Yeah, he was still like pretty early in the draft, but like not a first rounder then. But that's still 3 guys that went fairly early in the draft. So even when they're down, they still tend to have some representation. So I think that's a good pick.
Sweet.
That was who I was going to take, and now I have no idea what I'm going to do with Mr. Relevant. Apologize to everybody for all of a sudden wearing AirPods. My headset died. Ryland was in the middle of talking, and I was like, "Hold up, guys, my headset died." So when you got that weird jump cut, and all of a sudden I have pods in, I apologize. So I guess because there's no picks after this, I can kind of think out loud here with
True.
what I'm doing. So there's really not much left, to be honest with you guys. I think it's a crapshoot, and it's been for a couple of rounds now. The one that is sticking out to me is Missouri, because I'm getting Ahmad Hardy, and I have no idea what his status is at this current moment in time. We're doing this a full year out, but I'm getting the best running back in the draft. But also, I could be getting next to nothing if he doesn't declare. There's one other guy, Caden Green, who is on the top 100 board, and he's a first round pick on some big boards right now. So that's a little bit enticing to me. I'm thinking about just taking Oklahoma State just for the shock factor of Drew Mestamaker. And I'm a big fan of Mestamaker. I think he can take a big jump up boards. He could be.
I think you'd be taking him a year too early, personally.
I think I would too. That's kind of what I'm worried about. So the other one that I'm kind of between is Texas Tech, and I'm not getting Sorsby. Obviously, I don't think we can count him in any of this.
Yeah,
but
I think unless there's some sort of crazy court ruling that gets him on the field this year, I think we got to throw that out.
I don't know if that guy's ever going to play football again. So I feel like I don't know what's happening with him. So I think what I'm leaning towards, I'm going to take Missouri, and I'm going to take the upside swing that I get the best running back in the draft, who is going to certainly be a first round pick. And I'm getting Caden Green, who is a first round pick on some big boards there. So
yeah, and Hopin Green just kind of has that sort of like Membu trajectory where he ends up jumping up to the top 10. I mean, it's always I feel like crap shot if you're gonna vet on a team that has a tackle that's showing up on these lists, because like, I mean, Steelers are a perfect example. Like nobody had Max Ahinakor up this high a year ago, but tackles, man, they don't grow on trees. So there's always the tackle tax, and they kind of creep on up. So I think that's smart. Texas Tech was probably another one I was looking at.
Yeah.
No, I
With
do.
that
I do have
wrapped
a
up,
question, Ryan, with
yeah,
scoring. If Sorsby went in the supplemental draft, would that count for points for the Texas
I
Tech
wouldn't
guy?
count that because he never stepped on the field for Texas Tech,
That's
right?
fair.
Like, to me, if he goes in the supplemental draft for this season, then he's a Bearcat.
Yeah.
I
So,
guess that's true.
to me, just because if he doesn't record a regular season stat for the school, then you can't count it.
That's fair.
I feel like just going over a couple other schools, I think Clemson was one of the ones I was looking at for sure.
Clemson is a good
A couple
pick.
other big name schools that I think like would have been worthy of one of these last dart throws. Speaking of institutions, you've got Michigan. They've got Edge. It's John Henry. Is it Daly? I think it's John Henry Daly.
Yep.
Offensive tackle Blake Frazier. Offensive tackle Andrew Sprague. That's one where it's like I don't think anybody was like. I think their big class might be a year from now, but they're always worthy a shot. Texas A&M's got Mario Craver, who's I know there's a lot of big fans for him as a wide receiver. They also have Anto Saka as an edge, so that could have been an interesting pick. And then Texas Tech, AJ Holmes Jr. as a defensive lineman, Bryce Pollock as a cornerback, Terrence Carter as a tight end that I think has a lot of fans right now. Martin, I'm going to mess this up, but Ibirogba, Ibirogba is how his name is spelled. And he is a defensive lineman that we'll learn how to pronounce by April.
Yep.
And then lastly, another one that I would have just thrown maybe as a worthy one. Not necessarily the powerhouse. This probably wouldn't get you a bunch of points, but is like one of those floor schools in Iowa. They've got a couple of linemen that are potential picks this year. They also have a safety in Zach Lutmer. So, I think those are probably the last of the worthy schools. I think there's maybe a case too for like Florida, because they've got Bow at running back and a couple of edge players who could, emerge. But I think we picked a lot. Like, I don't think we picked a single school that I didn't have listed here. Yeah, I think Joey made us. Was it Joey or one of you guys made a shocking pick to me, but I don't remember which one it was at this point. But do we want to
Was
recap?
it? Yeah, we can recap.
Let's just recap what we ended up with. I'll start since I had the first pick, and then we can just go down the line and everybody remember who they drafted. But I ended up with Texas, Miami, Bama, Ole Miss, and Oklahoma. So a pretty SEC heavy. I only took Miami out of the ACC, not the SEC, which kind of feels gross to me as a big Big Ten supporter, but that's just the way the card shook out.
That's a good class. Yeah, mine went Oregon, South Carolina, Indiana, Penn State, and Clemson. Again, in retrospect, probably shouldn't have taken Penn State there, but besides that, I think it's a really solid class.
Oh, that's right,
yeah.
Penn State. That's the
Yeah.
school that I didn't have on my board.
All right, so I had the third pick, and I loved my class. I got the best player in the draft, and I got Ohio State in the first round. And then in the second round, I got the team that I was debating taking over Ohio State for a split second in Notre Dame. And I took LSU, which I feel like was a little bit of a shock to maybe both of you. It felt like you guys were both big Indiana over LSU fans. Time will tell. Time will tell. That's all I have to say about that. And then I got a powerhouse in Georgia who always has several guys who are going to get picked no matter what. And then Mr. Irrelevant, I got Missouri with the upside shot at Ahmad Hardy getting picked.
Solid. I'm very curious to see how this plays out. And I'm very curious what school is going to like emerge that wasn't on our radar at all and is going to have like several players or like at least one or two key players that would have been worth a lot of points.
I think it's going to be Oklahoma State.
Maybe, I don't know. Big 12, man, it's tough to bet on the Big 12 for me. But anything can happen. I do really like why am I blanking on his name right now? The wide receiver that came with Mestamaker from North Texas.
I can't think of his name. Let me look it up.
Yeah, I don't remember. It's like North Texas wide receiver to Oklahoma. It's like a very Wyatt Young. That's what I'm thinking of.
Wyatt Young. There it is.
I do. I like Wyatt Young more than I like Mestamaker. So we'll see. We'll see. But Mestamaker, he's got the physical measurements for sure. You can always coach him up. I don't know, man. I don't know. He's got.
You're a Mesta hater, dude. We get it.
But you can always tweak your mechanics.
That's the most coachable thing is those mechanics. That's what good old Mike McCarthy's doing with Drew Aller. He's refining the throwing motion. That's what we got to do with old Mestamaker.
Okay. One last question to take us out of here. Sorry to everybody that's not a Steelers fan, but we're going to bring it back to the Steelers since we're talking about it. I want to talk to you guys about, and sorry, it's always quarterbacks, but I feel like that's the hot topic right now is we got 4 on the roster and theoretically only, 3 are probably going to be it. So who's the odd man out and why? And do you have your tinfoil hat on and are looking for, is Drew Aller going to come up with a very serious midsummer ailment that's going to land him on IR for a year so they can sneak all of them onto the roster?
Yeah,
because I think the case against Aller is you can't not have him because you spent a 3rd round pick on him. But at the same time, I think he's the one that's going to I think certain people are underestimating how much of a reclamation project he really is.
Yeah, I think everybody pretty much has Aller as the quarterback 3 to start the year. He'll be on the roster, but whether it's Rudolph or Howard, who also makes it, they'll be at QB2. I've been pretty solidly on the, obviously, Rodgers QB1, and then Howard QB2, Aller QB3, and then Rudolph. Maybe a trade. I think he might have some day 3 7th round pick value, possibly, or they just cut him.
Who's trading for?
I don't know. There's a sliver of a chance there, but I think if we go back to when the Steelers kept who was it, Josh Dobbs and Mason Rudolph over Landry Jones, they have already the veteran quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. They don't need some veteran QB2. Howard is a guy who I've always liked, and it was everyone started liking him too much, and I was no, I don't like him that much, but I think he's better than where he was drafted. I think he's going to be a really solid, this backup quarterback for a while in the NFL, not ever some, Pro Bowl starter or something. But I think he'll stick around. He'll be a guy who you want to have in the locker room. Then obviously Aller's kind of penciled into that QB3 spot to start the year as your upside guy. And so I just think that if Howard can show most of what Rudolph can do, and he's younger, he's cheaper, I think you stick with him, you get rid of Rudolph, and you feel solid about that quarterback room.
I have a little bit of a different take on this, I guess. Here's what I'll say. I think that what makes logical sense for the quarterback room to shake out as is obviously you have Aaron and then Will Howard because you drafted him last year and he's got that whole year to develop behind Aaron Rodgers and learn everything about Aaron Rodgers, right? And then to have Drew Aller QB3 and then everybody's like, oh, just cut Mason. Just cut him. We know what he is. And I agree with you. We know exactly what we're getting in Mason Rudolph. He might have some day 3, 7th round value, but I have a tough time seeing anybody trade a 7th rounder for Mason Rudolph. Although we have to keep in mind, the Steelers did get draft compensation for Josh Dobbs when they were just going to cut him several years back. So there's that to hold on to, I guess. I think it's, and keep in mind, I'm saying this in May, I think it would be a mistake to completely cut Mason Rudolph loose because although Mike McCarthy speaks glowingly of Will Howard, and everybody loves Will Howard, he won a national championship. That's what everybody knows about him. That's the only thing anybody knows about him because he's taken exactly 0 reps in training camp, exactly 0 reps in any preseason play. He is effectively on the same level as Drew Aller as far as experience goes at the NFL level. So is that something that the Steelers are completely and totally comfortable with going into the season? If he shows you enough in preseason, sure. But I still, even then, preseason's a completely different thing. It's a completely different animal. It's not anywhere near actual games. We can all agree on that. I think it would be a mistake for the Steelers to be completely out on Mason Rudolph and not have him. I don't think they should feel comfortable going into the season with just Will Howard and Drew Aller behind Aaron Rodgers, because they've made it very clear they want to win as many games as they possibly can this year. That's why they hired Mike McCarthy. That's why they brought Aaron Rodgers back for another year. If Aaron goes down for, let's say, 5 weeks, Mason can probably win you two of those games at least. I don't have any confidence in Will Howard to win any of those games. I don't have any confidence in Drew Aller to win any of those games. So I think they're walking a very slippery slope if they get rid of Mason Rudolph. I think it would be dumb. I think it could potentially cost them a playoff spot, to be honest with you. If they get rid of Mason Rudolph straight up and ride with Will Howard, I think it could cost them some serious playoff position. And maybe that's me being harsh on Will Howard. Maybe I admittedly, I'm not high on Drew Aller whatsoever, or I'm not high on Will Howard whatsoever, but I think it would kind of be a mistake to just let him walk.
I don't know. It's interesting. I'll say this. I don't fully buy into the argument of, and like Joey's not the only one to make it. He's joining esteemed Yinzer Mark Caboli in his assessment there of that if they don't
Listen,
keep Mason Rudolph. I'm
no Mason apologist like Mark Caboli. Mark Caboli.
No shade to Mark Caboli. I only just laugh because he's like obviously the number one Mason Rudolph stan in Pittsburgh media. And that I feel like that's just a known bit. I don't know how much of a bit it is, but like that's gone on for a while. My thing is like I just don't see the argument that Mason is this just surefire stopgap to keep being competitive. I know we all have good memories of, I know I personally do because I was at that game when they went into Seattle a couple years ago and were able to beat the Seahawks in that late December game when they had to like really when they essentially jettisoned Kenny Pickett for the final time and Mason was able to put together a couple of games. We've just seen enough of him over, like, I think when you look at this lineup, it's like, okay, Aaron Rodgers is McCarthy guy. Drew Aller, who was drafted by McCarthy guy. I think we all agree that I don't think Drew Aller should see the field unless he just like wildly outperforms expectations during the summer. I think we all agree that he's pretty raw, and I think putting him out there is not a way to win games, but rather just to see if there's any hope of him developing. So I think if they're truly trying to stick to the whole, we're trying to be competitive no matter what, I honestly don't know that it matters, because I think if Rodgers goes down, you're not going to be competitive either way. I don't think Mason Rudolph is this huge stopgap. He turns the ball over. He doesn't take he somehow doesn't take aggressive shots as often as you would like when he is out there, and yet also turns the ball over fairly frequently for someone who doesn't take a ton of aggressive shots. So I just don't see him as this guy that we're really needing to keep around for the sake of being competitive should Rodgers miss a couple games again, which honestly probably will happen. Let's be real. I would be shocked if we make it through the entire slate and Rodgers doesn't miss a game or two. I would rather see Will Howard in that situation, and I think that's like, and I don't know that this is how management thinks, but I think that would allow them to play the perfect middle ground of like, we're trying to stay competitive. That's why we're bringing Aaron Rodgers back. But should Aaron Rodgers not play all the games and we have to put another guy in there, you get to see what Will Howard's got, see if he really has the mettle to like be in here and be like, if nothing else, at least a quality backup that you want to keep around in future years. And at worst case scenario, he's terrible and you switch to Aller. But if they're terrible, hopefully if this happens, it happens at a point where maybe then we can lean into the like, hey, we're just trying to jockey for draft position. And I know that's not something they would ever admit to or want to do, but as the backup plan to like, I feel like they're putting all their eggs in the Aaron Rodgers basket. And if that backfires, then I feel like that's a very easy way to slide into the like, well, we gave it our best shot. We really did want to be competitive, but it just didn't work out that way. And now we got a good pick. So I don't know. I don't know that Will Howard is ever going to be like a starter in this league, but I have a hard time saying that he's not at least someone that I could see reaching the levels that Mason Rudolph has showed us over the years.
Yeah, I pretty much see it that way as well. It's like I just don't know what you gain by starting Mason Rudolph for several games if Aaron Rodgers goes down. Like at that point, the season's in the trash. Might as well see what the young guy has. And Howard, I think, like you said, Ryan, like he has a safe enough floor that you're not completely throwing away the season. Like the questions on his draft profile were more just like, does he have like a starter level arm? But like he's not gonna fall apart out there. I don't think, even if it's not like gonna win you a ton of games.
And he's like surprisingly more mobile than you would think. He's not like
That
a
as well.
speedster, but he is kind of in that power runner mold where it's like if you get him in the goal line, you can do some interesting stuff with him. If he needs to get a couple short yards, you can do some interesting stuff with him. And I think honestly, if Rodgers goes down, this is a team that's going to pivot very hard into the power running game. So,
And let me be clear. I don't think it's smart to keep Mason Rudolph. I'm of the opinion that I'm not. I obviously have no clue what their plan at quarterback is. I think everybody in this call would have done things a lot different many years ago with this whole quarterback situation. And I think it's absolutely the correct thought process to be like, well, what's the point in keeping Mason around? Like, yeah, we have Will Howard. He probably won't completely fall apart, but if Rodgers goes down and Will Howard sucks, oh no, we have a good draft pick. That's a really good way to think. But I'm telling you, I don't think the Steelers see it that way. I
That's
think
fair.
that they want to keep Mason around. Then they're going to try to find a way to maybe Drew Aller does have some freak injury or he's not fully recovered from his ankle injury. And they put him on IR for a full year, give him a red shirt year. That could very well happen. And that could be the route that they take. And all of a sudden, Mason Rudolph's still there. Yay.
I think honestly, that's like my clubhouse favorite of like what I think will happen is like they'll just be like, "Ooh, I don't know, Drew, you got some stuff. We're gonna redshirt you for a year." I could see that happening 100%. And I agree with you in that I don't think they're thinking about the like, oh, and then if Will Howard sucks, we get a good pick. I don't think they think that way, but I just think that's going to be the case regardless of who goes in after Rodgers. So then that's when I default to like we've spent all this time hyping Will Howard up in the media, like when they didn't have to, and like I don't know, it doesn't make sense to me to put to put Rudolph out there when you've got two young guys, and you would figure you want to see at least what one of them can do.
Yeah.
And like with the new coaching staff, maybe Mike McCarthy is a little more interested in the upside of a young quarterback than Mike Tomlin would have been. There's just a lot of unknowns if we don't exactly know how they're going to run things.
And maybe he thinks that his system, he can make it friendly enough to the young guys that he can get production out of the offense without putting too much on their plate. I don't know, because I don't get what the point of coming out and being like I keep saying Mason. Will Howard he's not a 6th round pick to me. Like you don't have to gas up the 6th round quarterback pick of the previous regime. You don't have to do it. So why do it if you don't actually like feel like you would rather have him than old Mason Rudolph?
You see, I agree with you, and I guess they had no reason to, but I've always thought like, well, what else are they going to say about Will Howard? And then I think I was vindicated when they went out and they picked Drew Aller in the 3rd round. I think that's where kind of I still stand of like, I don't buy any of the Will Howard hype.
Well, here's the thing: is like
buy any of it.
I don't buy it as like as much as they're selling, because I think all three of us, we were doing heavy draft coverage for Behind the Steel Curtain. I think all three of us were like, no, they're definitely taking the quarterback, and they're probably going to take him no later than round like 4, probably round 3. So like, I think we're all on the same page with that. My whole thing is like, what did you expect them to say about Will Howard? If they didn't like actually have some affinity for him, you know how easy it is to say absolutely nothing about Will Howard? You could have said absolutely nothing at all. You could have said, hey, he's a promising young guy. We'll take a look at him. They did so much more extra than that it's like, I gotta believe that there is some actual affinity, at least enough to say, like, we're gonna gas him up because we're gonna let Mason go. But we want Mason because Aaron's old and we need somebody for these early camps that he's not gonna attend, and for the off days we're gonna give him this summer when he doesn't want to be 42 years old and grinding in the heat in Latrobe.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm still not in on Will Howard, for those wondering at home. Not at all.
Totally fair.
Totally fair. 100% fair.
And Drew Aller, we like him, guys. Yes, no. I mean, last time we were together, we did a final 7-round Steelers mock draft, and I think we picked Drew Aller. I'm pretty sure we did.
Yeah, I think you got that pick in there for sure. So, like,
because I feel like we always
nailed it. Flowers
every
to you
mock
for that.
we did, we were like, oh, pick 100. Like, that's the quarterback thing. Like, they're taking one. End of the 3rd round, absolutely.
And then they did it with the first third, but whatever. You know, it was like one of those where I was like, they're gonna do it in the 3rd round. I just hope they do it at the last one, and then they did it right off the bat, and it was like, all right, here we go.
Yep.
But I don't know. I'm not like I'm obviously rooting for Drew Aller to be awesome, because if Drew Aller is awesome, that's the best possible outcome for Steelers fans. That'll be amazing. I just don't expect it to happen, and I just think that when you're hearing, like, we've got to uninstall everything he knows about playing his position and completely re-upload a whole new way of thinking and playing for him, I just don't know how you look at that and have any confidence that that's going to be your future starter. And I also find myself sitting here going, you know, back in the day when we drafted Mason Rudolph in the 3rd round, I wasn't telling anybody that he's the future starter. I was very annoyed with anybody who was like, he's the plan for the future. Because I'm like, that's not what a 3rd round quarterback is. Like, you don't draft a quarterback in the 3rd and have him as your plan A. You just don't. I think he's just hey, we had 3 picks. We took him here because quarterback is a high value pick, and like, this seemed like where the quarterbacks were going to start going off the board, and we'll see what we can get from him. And if he turns into something, great. But I just think he's just a dart, though. He's just a lottery ticket. You're hoping that, you know, if he gets his number called, that he has a 1 percentile outcome. That probably won't happen, but if it does, we'll be overjoyed. But I would advise nobody to set their heart on it.
Yeah, I like you. I'm not a big Drew Aller guy. I didn't love the value with where they picked him, but I also completely understood why the Steelers did what they did. Because, like, I think back to last draft, I was kind of the Tyler Shuck guy the more that I watched him, but I didn't love him. I just couldn't talk myself into the value of where you had to pick Tyler Shuck. And then the Saints did. And then, like, so far it's working out. They might have something there. Maybe the Steelers would be in a good spot if they had taken a risk like that. So it's like, at a certain point, outside of like your really high-end quarterbacks in the draft, who the Steelers don't have a shot at in the last few, it's like, you're not going to like the value. You just have to take the risk at some point. So, like, I'm not going to say that Drew Aller is going to be the answer at quarterbacks. I don't think he will be, but like, you got to make those picks. And I get it.
We were certainly Shuck boys early, and I you know, I still, like, when everyone was kind of griping last year, all the people that are like, they should have drafted the rookie quarterback last year, or even this draft cycle, when people were complaining the Steelers should have taken one last year. Every time they're like, they should have taken Jackson Dart. I'm like, you mean Tyler Shuck? They should have taken Tyler Shuck. And I don't know if he's going to be awesome. Again, in a few months, we might find this to be an embarrassing thing to be on. But man, I'm a Shuck boy all the way, especially after recent events.
I don't know how this conversation turned to Tyler Shuck, but I like Tyler Shuck. I don't know if I consider myself
thirsty we all are.
A Shuck boy like you guys, but I consider myself a fan of a little Tyler Shuck.
I'm sitting here in my Shuck chair telling you that we should have been Shuck boys. But
well, on that note, that'll conclude today's program. Thank you all for watching. If you've made it to this point for the Tyler Shuck segment of this show, this was a 2027 school draft, and that was a lot of fun. Thank you guys for watching and listening. Please like, subscribe, comment, tell a friend to tell a friend about Trust the Board. We'll be back here same time, same place. I'm sure Ryland will join us again.
Yeah, tell us who
choice.
won. Get your picks in now. Give us betting lines on who's going to end up with the better class next year.